Hello everyone, Primetime Moff with a retro review, and this week as we look at 1994 and we're really in the depths of G2, I wanted to talk to you about something that wasn't a toy. I didn't have the G2 toys when they came out anyway. Did pick up a couple of this year, in late 90s, maybe 99. I've talked about it as this epic haul from a cash and carry that was shutting down. But the thing that means more to me for G2, or is more important in G2 terms for me, is the G2 comic. Now, young Moff went on a trip in 5th year or 6th year. I can't remember which one it would have been. My memory's not that great, but I remember it going on a trip into Glasgow when we did visits of universities. It was really cool. From somebody from a little village, didn't have access to anything, you know. The two villages I grew up in, one had one newsagent and it had Beano and Dandy, and that was about it. Then I went to another village that didn't even have that. It was even smaller. You know, the opportunity to see something like Glasgow with HMV, with the Forbidden Planet. Oh, and my love affair with comics kind of really kicked in at that point. Even more so when I went to university. I used to pick up the Forbidden Planet used to do a comic of the week, and it was like 99 pence. And HMV did a single of the week, and it was 99 pence. Every week I'd buy those, and kind of further my love of comics. But on my trip the first time into a Forbidden Planet, I picked up two comics that had a massive impact on me going forward, and one of them was a copy of this G2 issue 1. I remember seeing it, I remember seeing the cover, I remember This Is Not Your Father's Autobot, and I was like, whoa, what's this, Transformers G2? You know, as far as I was aware, Transformers hadn't been around at that point. As I said, I only did the comics, the cartoon, sorry. The toys, I talked about this, Action Masters, Micromasters a wee bit hooked me. Action Master Pretenders didn't work for me, so I kind of really fell away from them. I was still at car boot sales, or at, not car boot sales really, probably more school fairs and stuff. I'd always look for Transformers, but I was looking for, you know, 84, 85, probably 86 spots. So anyways, I picked this up, and I remember flicking at it, and as soon as I opened it, I'm like, whoa. It says it's not your father's Autobot. Now, to me, it's not. It's never going to be that. Your dad's not going to have been old enough at this point to read it. I guess it could work for my son now, but it was more, this is not your childhood Transformer, was the way I read this and looked at it. And I'm looking at it, and I've never seen Bludgeon. I'm like, who's this character Bludgeon? I'm looking at the amount of gunfire, and the way the stuff's drawn, the way that it's written, even the way the speech bubbles are, it just, something in me was like, oh, this is outstanding. I picked it up, absolutely read it cover to cover, probably a dozen times. And then in subsequent years, when I managed to get my driving licence, I made it my mission to pick up every issue of the G2 run. I then bought the G2 series when it came out in the Titan books, graphic novels. At some point, I don't think I sold. I lost a lot of my I lost a lot of comics. Moving house. I don't know where they went to. I did sell some stuff when we were funding the wedding. I think I might have sold it in that. I don't know, which bothers me. But I made a decision that at first TFUK Con, I was taking. I've always had a copy of this, and pretty much almost every time I ever saw one, I picked one up and just bought it, just like when I was in places. So I have currently 5 copies of it. Why? I don't know. So I've got a plain one signed. I've got a bifold one signed. I've got a plain one not signed that I used to make a print of the cover. But I didn't have all the rest of them. I think I had two issues when I first saw Simon Furman at TFUK Con in 2022. Said to him at that point, hey, I'm going to pick these back up. Told him a wee story. Picked up a couple of issues at that point. Went last year, 2023, and I'm like, do you know what? Stuff it. I'm just going to buy them all. I'm going to buy everything. And I knew he had a run because I'd seen it when I'd went up and said hello in the morning. I seen he had a full run. I thought, I'm just going to buy the full run. At that point, I couldn't remember what ones I had at home. I was so stressed with doing an interview that I hadn't really thought about it. I'm going to buy the full run. Walks up, and the gentleman in front of me, my good friend Russ from Toys R Us, bought the full run, and I was like, oh, I'm not getting it today. So I picked up what I needed, what I could get from him at that point. This year I asked him, can you bring me what I'm missing? Didn't have them all. So, alright, okay, so I was left with, got what he had, left with 3 to get, and I've managed to complete them again. And I've reread them from paperback, which is a joyous experience reading them in paperback. From, you know, I've kept the Titan books ones, I've read the Titan book ones multiple times, but rereading them again in a proper paper format is a real, there's a feel to a comic that you just cannot get from a trade paperback or from online. You know, I don't mind picking up and reading things online. I don't have the space to keep a Transformers comic collection. My only real comic collection I still have is my Deadpool comic collection, which at one point I had every issue of that Deadpool had appeared in, even like extra kind of wee random one panel appearances. It was a great thing to collect. Then you know, probably 20 years ago, Deadpool just hit this point when he was doing the Deadpool cable stuff of popularity, and he just then boomed into everything he is now. And so up to the end of Deadpool cable, I have every version of every appearance of Deadpool in any comic, whether it be a panel, whether it be a full bit. I've always runs, and I've kept them because that was the real comic that collecting that comic was one of my favourite experiences ever. I wish I'd kept my original series, but I'm so glad to have them again. I'm a big one for telling people that they telling the stories of stuff, because if you've not read this, the joy of our fandom is, I guarantee there are people who have never read this. I guarantee there are people who have never read the original G1 series. I'm at the point where I've not read the G1 series since I must be late 90s, early 2000s. I read it, and I read it on a computer because that was the only way I could find it at that point. I have set myself the goal of going back and rereading the G1 stuff again, because I remember some of it, but it'll be like reading it afresh, I think. If you've not experienced Transformers G2, there are only 12 issues. It's not a huge read. You can pick up they're in the collected edition from Hachette. There are ways to get a hold of this. I thoroughly recommend picking this up. I think even just for the beautiful artwork, I think it's awesome. Some of the other covers are stunning as well. Let me give you an example of, again, if I was to tell you that my probably 2 or 3 of my favourite covers of all time are in G2, you'd be not shocked. Look at this bad boy. Like, as I say, when I was learning about G2 at the time, I was like, who's Bludgeon? You know, but these comic covers are just outstanding. It was such a joy when I went hunting for them back in the 90s. just absolutely glorious. So G2, Transformers G2, and as a teenager picking it up, finding out about Transformers comics not being what I maybe thought they originally were, really blew me away. Very much, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. The G2 comic is a big part of why Transformers G2 has always been a favourite bit for me. Not because I think the toys are amazing, not because anything, just because it represents a time for me where I rediscovered Transformers, and I discovered stuff that I had missed about the original Transformers, and that very much, that experience had me then going, right, when I found out, you know, back in the Usenet groups, I found out that the Transformers G2 was only a short run of comics. It was an easy thing for me to go and achieve. I'd never ever challenged myself to go and find all the UK comics or the Marvel G1 comics. I just thought that was too much to go and hunt for at the time as a kind of young later teen. But that was an achievable thing, and that was a massive bit. So the G2 comic is always going to stand up, in my opinion, as one of my absolute favourite parts of the fandom, parts of the Transformers lore. I just think the way it looks, the way it feels is just epic. So I'm not going to give spoilers. Again, most of you will probably have read this, but if you haven't, I do highly recommend picking it up. Give yourself a wee afternoon, a wee weekend, sit, pick it up, read it, and you will not be disappointed. Now, I will be back with normal toy reviews going forward, but I just felt that when we're in the era of G2, I love G2. I love the colours. I love some of the wackiness. Genuinely, the G2 Sideswipe is one of my absolute favourite toys of all time. The Masterpiece is one of my favourite Masterpieces of all time. I could easily talk about some of the G2 stuff, but the pinnacle in this point of the Transformer story, if you like, of the 40 years, for me, the most pivotal part is the comic, so I felt as if I had to talk about that. But I'll be back with toys coming soon, coming next week. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Moff. Speak to you next week.